We've got our All right, good evening. Welcome to the March 8th, 2021 Historic Zoning Commission. Please respond when I call your name. This is our official roll call. Kelly Baker, Susan Besser, Brian Laster, Nick Mann,
Present.
Lisa Marquardt,
Present.
Mary Pierce. She's not here today. Ken Scalf,
Present.
Kathy Worthington,
Present.
and Jim Roberts, present. Now I'd like to entertain a motion to approve Resolution 2021-27, a resolution declaring that the Historic Zoning Commission shall meet on March 8th, 2021, and conduct its essential business by electronic means rather than being required to gather a quorum of the members physically present in the same location, because it is necessary to protect the health, safety, and welfare of Tennesseans in light of the COVID-19 outbreak. Is there such a motion?
Mr. Chair, this is Brian. So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second, it's Ken.
Thank you, Ken. All right. Please respond then. Kelly Baker,
Aye.
Susan Besser,
Aye.
Brian Laster,
Aye.
Nick Mann,
Aye.
Lisa Marquardt,
Aye.
Mary Pierce is absent, Ken Scalf,
Aye.
Kathy Worthington,
Aye.
and Jim Roberts, aye. To prevent the spread of COVID-19 and to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the city of Franklin officials, staff, and citizens, the Historic Zoning Commission will restrict physical access in the meeting room to a small number of staff members due to the current limitations on public gatherings. Accommodations have been made to ensure that the public is still able to participate in the meeting. The public may participate in the following ways: watch the meeting on Franklin TV or the City of Franklin website. Watch the live stream through the City of Franklin Facebook and YouTube accounts. Call into the meeting at 312-626-6799, meeting ID 960-6658-5073, passcode 756461. Callers will be unmuted and given the opportunity to comment during the meeting at specific times. Limited viewing will be available in the lobby of City Hall for up to 10 persons, but in-person comment in the boardroom will not be available. The public may email contents to planningintake@franklintn.gov to be provided in full to the commission and included in the minutes, but not read aloud in their entirety during the meeting. Email comments will be accepted until noon on the day of the meeting. Now, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the February 8th, 2021 minutes, which were previously distributed. Is there such a motion?
So moved. This is Lisa.
Thank you, Lisa. Is there a second?
Second, Mrs. Kelly.
Go ahead.
Kelly Baker. Thank you. Are there any additions or corrections? Hearing none, you're ready to vote. Kelly Baker,
Aye.
Susan Besser,
Aye.
Brian Lester,
Aye.
Nick Mann,
Aye.
Lisa Marquardt,
Aye.
Ken Scalf,
Aye.
Kathy Worthington,
Aye.
and Jim Roberts, aye. Okay, announcements. Are there any non-agenda items on the agendas? This hearing none. Are there any citizens' comments on items not on the agenda?
There are no citizens on the line.
Thank you. Then we're ready for our first item this afternoon. It's consideration of signage at 99 East Main Street. Amanda?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The applicant is requesting a certificate of appropriateness for the placement of a wall sign and some associated lighting at 99 East Main Street. This is one of the tenant locations in that building. It's the tenant location that is closest to the Harpeth River on the north side of the building. Projecting arm sign and window decal signage were both approved by the Historic Zoning Commission at a previous meeting in January. And the proposed wall sign was deferred to allow for more discussion. So the applicant appeared before the Design Review Committee to discuss the revised proposal at its February meeting. The subject property is unique in that it is designed to have an integrated porch. And I'm going to share screen to be able to pull that up. Can everyone confirm if they can see my screen? Can everyone see the screen? Okay, great, thank you. So it has an integrated porch, creating a cantilevered upper story here. That arrangement was approved in order to accommodate the construction requirements in the floodplain in which this property is situated. So the wall sign is proposed to be placed above the building's porch and below the second floor windowsills. The sign consists of individual metal letters adhered to the building with spacers. It is proposed to be centered over that storefront entrance. The design of the building face includes an approximate 1-inch projection you can see here between the two upper floor windows. And you can see a little bit more closely on the staff report exhibit. The design of the building includes this projection, very slight projection. And because of this, the proposed placement is not entirely consistent with the guidelines, which recommend the placement of signage over original or against the placement of signage over original decorative designs or detailing, and state that a wall sign should be mounted on the flat surfaces of the building. The use of individual letters with spacers in lieu of a sign with a backer board, however, minimizes the appearance of this very slight projection. And because of that, it's far less noticeable. Otherwise, the proposed location itself is a very typical sign placement over a storefront. The lettering is metal and material, which is consistent with the guidelines, and the color of the lettering was altered from a bright green color to a white color at the request of the DRC to better complement the colors of the building as is recommended by the guidelines. The exact shade of white has not been specified, however. The guidelines state that wall signs should measure no more than 1 square foot per linear foot of width of the storefront. Staff confirmed that the storefront area between beneath the pilasters and between the pilasters measures approximately 25 feet, and then including the pilasters themselves and the area of the same brick tone on the storefront would measure approximately 32 linear feet. While the sizing of the wall sign has not been provided by the applicant, it does appear to meet the recommendations. The proposed lighting consists of either 2 or 4 miter arms. You can see in this configuration, there are 4 locations shown for arms. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then here is another, in this configuration, you see 2, 1, 2. The applicant is proposing the use of miter arms, but has also included for consideration some cylindrical light fixtures that would project onto the sign from above it, as with the miter arms. The guidelines recommend that new light fixtures be used to illuminate signs in an unobtrusive design and way and have appropriate placement on the building. And because of this, the location of the projecting arm, miter arms, or the cylindrical light fixtures is appropriate. The applicant indicates that a block fixture will be utilized to match the storefront color down here, whether it is a miter arm or a cylindrical fixture. And just so everyone is clear, this is the type of arm proposed, and you can see that in place in a sign about a block face away in downtown Franklin. And here is a cylindrical light fixture, which is the applicant's second preference you can see in place on a building here. With that, it is recommended that the Historic Zoning Commission approve the proposal with conditions. The conditions being that the spacers utilized for the individual letter mounting be chosen in such a way as to allow the letters to stand off the building evenly. And when I say that, I mean specifically that because there is a slight projection here, that these spacers should be shorter, and so that the letters are all even when installed. They're even in distance from the building facade when installed. The installation should also utilize mortar joints in lieu of the brick faces themselves to lessen any potential damage to the brick face as recommended by the guidelines. The applicant must also provide the dimensional specifications for the sign, how tall each sign is and how wide it goes across the building, in order to confirm that it meets the sizing recommendations of both the guidelines and the city zoning ordinance. Any changes, of course, would need to be returned to the preservation planner or the Historic Zoning Commission for review and approval prior to installation. Thank you.
Thank you. Would the applicant like to comment on this application?
We have taken all of your feedback into consideration, and we really hope that this is the go ahead. I mean, we're very proud of this sign, and we're excited to get it going.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any citizens who wish to comment on the application?
No callers on the line.
All right, good. Thank you. Then we need a motion from the commission.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve with conditions the certificate of appropriateness for the proposed wall sign and associated lighting.
Thank you, Kelly. Is there a second to that?
I second that. This is Nick.
Thank you, Nick. All right, discussion, questions.
Mr. Chair, this is Susan.
Thank you.
I would like to make an amendment.
All right.
I would like to make an amendment that the letter size and color come back to the preservation planner for approval.
I think that's the letter size is already in the recommendation.
Well, it says that while the sizing of the wall sign has not been provided, it's a height and width of letters in addition to the span of letters. So I guess it wasn't clear to me that that was the case.
It's recommendation number 2. The applicant must provide the dimensional specifications of the sign to confirm that it meets the sizing recommendations of the guideline.
Okay.
But I could have been more clear to say it should have been provided to staff. Thank you for
Okay.
clarifying
So
that.
then my amendment would be for the color to come back to the preservation planner.
And we've had conversation about that color before. So it's whether white or off-white. So do you have a preference you want to include in the amendment?
Well, I think Ms. Pierce mentioned something at the last meeting that there's so many colors of white. And I think that the color really needs to be chosen next to the building. So because, to try to pick up on the mortar color.
Well, I'm going to let me ask the applicant, is there a known color that you've got in your drawing that you've already picked?
We were going on your recommendations with a slightly softer white is what I believe we were asked to provide, a slightly softer white. And I don't think I provided the sign dimensions this go around because I had provided them like 3 times ago, so I apologize for not adding that in, but it is within your accordance.
Okay, so Susan, restate your amendment now.
Okay.
If you have to be very clear
Yeah.
what you're asking staff to review, because right now I'm not clear on that.
Okay. The color for the sign, which is specified to be white, should come back to the preservation planner for approval. No?
No,
No?
no, it needs to be color to blend in with the, I guess it's.
With the
white,
brick?
Blend in
With the
with the
border?
brick, yeah.
Okay, all right. So the color of the sign, which has been specified to be an off-white, should be,
If you wanted to match the mortar color, that needs to be specified. Otherwise, most white would blend with the brick color. I just want to make sure I review it to meet the intent of your amendment.
the thing is, the mortar color is too dark.
Yeah,
You know, I drove by there the other day and it's too dark, so I don't think we want to match the mortar color. So I'm just not quite sure how to word this, except that we don't want the white to be too bright. So,
Mr. Chair,
yeah.
may I make an adjustment to my original motion?
Well, if Ms. Besser would like to withdraw.
I'm
consideration-
fine. You go right ahead, Kelly.
Okay, so I'm going to include with my original motion that the color should come back to staff to ensure that the white is complementary to the building. Does that work?
Let me ask staff. How does that sound to you, Amanda?
Well, I don't know what
Complimentary.
is in somebody's train of thought when they.
I mean, the main thing is you don't want a stark white letter. I think that's what we're trying to get to.
Okay.
Is that what Kelly, is that what you're saying, Kelly Baker?
Yes.
I'll second that.
Real quick,
All right. well,
Mr. Chair, do we need to specify how many lights are on this with this motion, or is that a separate motion?
Well, we're gonna, I think she's got, don't you have something in here about the lights? No.
I think it was either 2 or 4.
It's either
But
2
not-
or 4, depending on the fixture chosen. So we're giving some latitude to the applicant based on what I'm seeing in this.
We want to go with the miter arm. The
Okay.
initial,
I think the main thing is you just want to make sure your letters are flooded properly, so you've got consistent lighting across there. That's what you're trying to achieve.
yes, sir.
But if the commission would feel better with an amendment that would talk about the lighting, we can do that. So whoever's speaking needs to unmute.
Yeah, I would like to make an amendment
Okay.
for the miter lighting. And I think there were 2 or 4 showed the miter.
4. There are 4 on the miter.
So that's what I would like to have an amendment.
All right. Is there a second then to Nick's amendment?
Mr. Chair, this is Brian. I'll second.
All right. Thank you, Brian. Any more discussion on the lighting part of it?
So for clarity, the amendment is to specify 4 miter arm
Lights.
lights.
Correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
Mr.
Any
Chair.
other questions or comments about that? All right. Then on this amendment, just please respond when I call your name. Kelly Baker,
Aye.
Susan Besser,
Aye.
Brian Lester,
Aye.
Nick Mann,
Aye.
Lisa Marquardt,
Aye.
Ken Scalf,
Aye.
Kathy Worthington, excuse me,
Aye.
and Jim Roberts. Aye. All right. Now we're back to the main motion as amended. The main motion being to approve the request including the request that the color come back to staff for approval. So, any more?
May I make a comment, please?
Yep.
First, I wanted to thank the applicant for making as many changes as needed to be made in order to get to this point. Unfortunately, from a guidelines position and also what the applicant had to do to change the branding by changing the colors, I think we're setting a precedent where we're going to have to be doing that again and again. So for that reason, I'll be voting against the motion.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments? All right, then let's just respond when I call your name. This is to approve the motion as amended. Kelly Baker,
Aye.
Susan Besser,
Aye.
Brian Laster.
Aye.
Thank you. Nick Mann,
Aye.
Lisa Marquardt,
No.
Ken Scalf,
Aye.
Kathy Worthington,
Aye.
and Jim Roberts. Aye. All right. Thank you to the applicant.
Thank you, Renee.
All right. Now we're ready for item 2, consideration of alterations, fences, gates, and ramp construction at 150 Franklin Road. Gary Batson, applicant. Amanda?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The applicant is requesting a certificate of appropriateness for a series of site alterations at 150 Franklin Road, which is the lower BGA campus, in coordination with the ongoing Franklin Road infrastructure improvements, the sidewalk project. The school campus is the site of a 1891 National Register listed property, the Cox House, and the proposed alterations include the construction of an accessibility ramp at the front porch and at the side elevation entrance, the construction of a masonry wall with a 6 foot height, because it's 18 inches as the wall, and then another 4.5 feet of steel fencing on top of that, with 7-foot masonry columns along the front of the property with operable gates recessed from the property line to accommodate an existing easement. The installation of steel fencing at a 6-foot height along the perimeter of the athletic field, and the installation of steel fencing at a 6-foot height along the northern property line to tie into the previously approved pierced masonry wall at the side yard. The current application includes information about the previously approved items, specifically the parking and driveway alterations, the walkway and accessory structure construction, the pierced brick wall I just mentioned at the left elevation, and the entrance signage. So the elements of the current application associated with these alterations have not been included within this analysis and recommendation as they've already been handled. I will share screen just a moment. Okay, I think everyone can see my screen. Please let me know if you can't. Okay, so the first thing we'll be discussing is the ramps. The ramps, let me orient you a little bit on the screen. This is Franklin Road, and this is the building. The historic portion of the building is here, and the first proposed ramp is located here. And in fact, I think I'll go to the next screen where you can see that a little better. Yes, so the first ramp is proposed here at the porch. And the guidelines recommend that ramps be located on rear or secondary elevations that are not readily visible from the street, and that one should use wooden ramps with detailing similar to that of the building. Ramp should be designed to be reversible, have minimum impact, and not involve removal of historic features. So the ramp on the side of the building at the location of the non-historic portion of the building is being integrated into an existing sidewalk. In fact, it's more of the sidewalk being altered and not really the creation of a ramp as much as altering the grading of the sidewalk in order to accommodate accessibility. And that location is appropriate and consistent with the guidelines. The one I'll be focusing more on is the one located at the porch of the historic Cox House. It is not entirely consistent with the guidelines as the historic porch is at a prominent elevation visible from the street. The applicant has provided additional information to supplement the previous submittal demonstrating that the ramp will be tied to the building so that it's located behind the front facade wall, however, lessening its visual impact. So you can see the porch here. Instead of having the ramp forward of the porch, the ramp will actually align along this wall here. And you will go back and enter forward to go onto the building. So it will lessen its visual impact to both the building and the street.
Correct.
While it appears that little to no alteration to the historic porch will be required to accommodate this ramp, the applicant's proposing to attach the ramp to the masonry wall of the historic house right here directly, utilizing a foam board with a drain panel between the ramp, the concrete ramp, and the historic masonry. It is unclear if this configuration will allow the ramp to be removed in the future without negative consequence to this historic brick, as recommended by the Secretary of Interior Standards for Rehabilitation. A physical separation of the ramp from the historic masonry is more appropriate in that it can ensure that the ramp can be removed without any negative impact to this building in the future, if so desired. Moving on to fences and gates. The guidelines state that
Let's stop here.
Sure.
To talk about your recommendation for the ramp, and then let's deal with the fences later
Okay.
separately.
Okay.
You want us to speak?
To the ramp specifically, it's recommended that the Historic Zoning Commission approve with conditions the proposed ramp construction with the following. It is unclear, again, if the information provided would allow the ramp to be removed in the future without negative consequence to that historic resource, specifically this masonry wall. Therefore, a physical separation of the ramp from the historic masonry is more appropriate. So that will be staff's recommendation. However, if the proposed ramp configuration is determined to be appropriate by the Historic Zoning Commission, the applicant must provide information to staff to demonstrate how the historic masonry wall will be protected and how the ramp can be removed in the future without negative consequence to that building. This information will be required for review and approval by staff prior to issuance of any building permits. Further, the application must meet all the requirements of the city prior to issuance of a permit, and any additional changes to that plan must be returned to staff or the commission for review and approval. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Now for the applicant to comment on the ramp portion only at this time.
Sure. Thank you. This is Chris Wood and Dwight Kaiser with Kaiser Bogan Design. We agree that we could provide any additional information as we consult with our architecture team and our general contractor to provide the most appropriate solution to ensure that any concrete accessibility path is, can't be decoupled from and damaging the existing stone foundation, the existing brick veneer, prior to the building permit being issued. So we do not take any exception with that, and we can provide all that information. And I think we can accomplish that to achieve the protection of the historic Cox House while providing a means to provide an accessible path to this porch.
Okay, thank you. Are there any citizens who wish to comment on the application? On this portion of the application?
No callers are on the line.
Thank you. Then we're ready for a motion from the commission to discuss, and this is on the ramp only.
I'll make the motion
Thanks, Lisa.
This is Lisa. I move to approve with conditions a certificate of appropriateness for the construction of 2 accessibility ramps.
Thank you. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second that. It's Kelly.
Thank you, Kelly. Any discussion, questions?
This is Ms. Rose. I just want to note that as motion, that would include the ramp being physically separated from the wall for the one at the historic porch location.
And that's what I heard the applicant say, that they would be able to. All right, then clarify. Let me ask the applicant that then.
So we feel like not having the gap there is to prevent water from intrusion into the foundation and collection of debris up against the foundation. So it'd be more appropriate to pour the successful ramp, this concrete accessible ramp, adjacent to that. And we can provide detailing, architectural detailing to meet that requirement and review by the preservation planner. So to ensure that the concrete can be decoupled and removed in the future and not damage the stone foundation and the brick veneer.
Amanda, you got any other comment on that?
I don't, other than just that that would be a condition of approval. I just want the commission to be clear in the motion if they are requiring a physical separation, or if it's approved as submitted, with the condition that the applicant provide that information to me.
I think we'll provide additional information to you as part of the conditions of approval.
Mr. Chair, this is Brian.
Okay.
Is an amendment appropriate at this point, or is it the condition?
If you feel you can make one that'll clarify what Amanda's wanting and what these gentlemen have said.
Mr. Chair, I move to amend the motion that the ramp must be installed in a manner in which it is not directly connected to the historic building and is physically separated.
All right, is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it. It's Ken.
Yeah, all right, Ken. Amanda, is that clear for you?
Yes, it's clear to me. Thank you.
Applicants, is that any question from your standpoint?
Mr. Chair, this is Jim Cross. I wanted to clarify something, that physical separation, meaning if there's any sort of a gap between the building and the handicap ramp of any significance, it's not going to be approved as a handicap ramp, because a wheelchair could run off in that opening, a walker could go off in that opening, anything like that. How we would propose to physically separate it is to use that with some expansion joint material so that the concrete actually never touches the house. So if the handicap ramp were to be torn out, there is a material there that prevents the concrete from touching the house. If you had to separate it physically, to do that, you'd have to form it. Then you'd have at least a 4 or 5 inch gap between the handicap ramp and the house. So I just want to, we're kind of talking a lot of details here, but I just want to be sure that we clarify that.
All right, I'm hearing you, Amanda.
I understand. Thank you for clarifying that, Mr. Cross. It would be something, of course, we work out with the rest of the city team, but it would seem to me that a railing could be provided to ensure that someone does not roll off the edge in the gap that would be presented between the buildings or the ramp and the building. And the physical separation wouldn't have to be very substantial. It's to meet all the requirements of the city, which would be to ensure that this could be removed in the future without consequence. I'm not advocating that the other is not sufficient. It's just that it was not sufficient to me in the application as provided.
All right, well, the amendment says not directly connected to the building and is physically separated from the building. So, Brian, what if we added a comment that the specific details are to be worked out with city staff and the applicant?
I'll do that, Mr. Chair.
All right, is there a second to that? Ken, is that acceptable to you, that additional comment?
It is.
Are there any other comments on the amendment? And again, the amendment is that the ramp is not directly connected to the building and is physically separated. Details to be worked out between the applicant and city staff. Any other comments? Okay, let's vote on the amendment. Kelly Baker.
Aye.
Susan Besser.
Aye.
Brian Lester.
Aye.
Nick Mann.
Aye.
Lisa Marquardt.
Aye.
Ken Scalf.
Aye.
And Kathy Worthington.
Aye.
And Jim Roberts. Aye. All right, we're ready for the main motion as amended.
I'm not clear for record. I'm sorry. Mr. Scott, was yours an aye or a nay?
It was an aye.
It was an aye.
Okay, thank you. It cut out on me. Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion on the main motion as amended for the ramp? All right, we're ready to vote. Kelly Baker.
Aye.
Lisa Susan Besser.
Aye.
Brian Lester.
Aye.
Nick Mann.
Aye.
Lisa Marquardt.
Aye.
Ken Scalf.
Aye.
Kathy Worthington.
Aye.
Jim Roberts. Aye. All right, now we're ready for the fencing. Amanda?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am resuming share screen. The applicant is requesting fencing at the property. I'm pulling up my notes, excuse me. The guidelines state that fencing materials should be compatible with the surface materials of the building. Here's a portion of the building you can see on the screen. And that compatibility is achieved by maintaining a range of materials historically present in the district. Fencing should not exceed 3 feet in primary yards in height per zoning ordinance and design guidelines. And the guidelines define that primary yard area as any area within 20 feet recessed from the front plane of the building forward. No metal fencing besides that made of cast iron should be utilized in primary yards per guidelines. And the guidelines also recommend that operable fences be configured to swing inwardly and not slide. So I will start, since there's 3 sections of fencing for discussion, I will start with the front wall located along here. A 6-foot masonry wall, which is consistent of a 18-inch low masonry wall with a 4.5-foot tall metal fence atop with 7-foot masonry columns throughout, is proposed along the front property for security reasons. The wall is proposed to be recessed approximately 25 to 26 feet from the back of the planned sidewalk at the areas north of and adjacent to the existing drive and the ceremonial walkway, which is located here. It's also recessed. It varies because of the shape of the property, but at lower areas, it's recessed 30 to 31 feet from the planned sidewalk. Operable gates are proposed as part of that at the drive entrances located here and here. This Franklin Road perimeter fencing is in the primary yard and is proposed to exceed the recommendations of the guidelines for height by 3 feet. The purpose of the height recommendations of the design guidelines is to ensure that historic resources remain highly visible and not obstructed from street view. So the applicant has included for consideration some imagery of the former Elmore College in the Franklin Historic District, which is on South Margin Street, which features a low masonry retaining wall. The proposed wall at the subject property here at BGA features a non-retaining wall at approximately 1.5 feet. The zoning ordinance allows for 6-foot height to enclose athletic fields. The athletic field is here, south of the historic house. And as proposed, the zoning ordinance could support the height. For the non-athletic field areas, such as this one in the north side here, the zoning ordinance requires a fence height or wall height no taller than 3 feet. So because of this, approval from both the Historic Zoning Commission is required, as well as that of the Board of Zoning Appeals for any primary yard independent of this athletic fence. The materials of the proposed fence are not entirely consistent with the recommendations of the guidelines, but I do think that might be able to be clarified within our discussion this evening. The application notes in a couple of different places, iron, steel, aluminum, and in one note in particular, it notes that all the fences will be steel/aluminum construction. Per the guidelines, no metal fencing besides that made of cast iron should be utilized in primary yards. So because of this, a sample of that material would be necessary to determine if it's emulative enough of a cast iron to serve as an appropriate alternative material to be placed in the front yard here. The applicant has indicated that he simplified the detailing of the proposed fencing component of the wall by removing the scroll detailing that was present underneath the pickets. So you can see on the rendering here, there's pickets, and what used to be there was a scroll underneath it, but that has been simplified and removed in the renderings. However, you are to go to the elevation set, you can still see the scroll. So I just wanted to be clear that the scrolling is not intended as part of the applicant's proposal today, but rather the way that the fence is designed here in the renderings. Moving on to the athletic field, move upwards, excuse me. As I indicated a moment ago, the athletic field is south of the historic house located here. The applicant's proposing to use a 6-foot tall fence. It does not have a low wall. It's strictly the steel fencing along the perimeter of the sports field. While the fencing is simpler and does not present as much mass as that proposed at the front property line, it is still of a height that's not consistent with the recommendations of the guidelines, as it's double the height recommendation of 3 feet. As noted with the perimeter fencing, a sample of that material would be necessary to determine if it's emulative enough of cast iron to meet the intent of the guidelines. This would not require Board of Zoning Appeals consideration as proposed. Now moving on to the northern property line, you can see where there is the wall ties to the property line, and there's a proposed fence to tie to a wall that has already been approved here. This section is what we're talking about right now. The steel fencing, in essence, is proposed to match what is proposed at the athletic field, which is a simplified version of this fencing in that it does not have a low wall or a scroll material, but it is just picket at a 6-foot height. The fencing is simpler than that at the proposed front yard location, but again, the height exceeds that recommended by the design guidelines at any location that's forward of the historic house and within 20 feet of the front wall of the historic house. So a majority of the fence, it exceeds the recommendations of the guidelines in height. A small portion would meet the guidelines at this location here. And again, a sample would be required to determine the appropriateness of the material in light of the guidelines. So that covers the 3 sections of fencing. Again, as a recap, this is low wall with fencing at 6-foot height. This is a steel fence with no low wall at a 6-foot height. And then the fencing here is 6 foot tall, matches the athletic field at a 6-foot height. It is recommended that the commission deny the fencing and gates because the fencing and walls in the area defined as the primary yard exceed the height recommended by the design guidelines. The materials may not be consistent with the guidelines, So if issued a COA, a sample of that material would need to be provided to the preservation planner to determine if it's emulative enough of cast iron to be supported by the guidelines. And that sample would need to be submitted prior to issuance of any permits. Further, if issued a COA, the proposed fence detailing on the entirety of all the fencing would need to match the detailing shown on the rendering here, as opposed to what is shown on the two-dimensional drawings here, as I believe that's the applicant's intent. Also, if issued a COA, the application must meet all city requirements, which includes a site plan approval. All fences and walls independent of the athletic field will require consideration of approval of a variance by the Board of Zoning Appeals and would require approval of a variance in order to move forward. Further, any additional changes to these plans would need to be returned to staff for the commission for review and approval prior to moving forward. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay. Would the applicant now like to comment on all of the fencing?
Mr. Chair, Jim Cross again. I just had one question for Amanda. Did I understand to say that the fencing around the playground also doesn't meet the height requirement? I thought the playground could have a 6-foot fence around it.
I'm happy to answer that if you'd like, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
The fencing around the athletic field, while it does meet the requirements of the zoning ordinance and would not require issuance of a variance by the Board of Zoning Appeals, it does not meet the design guidelines for the historic district for height. So any fencing in the historic district, regardless of use, has to meet the requirements as determined to be appropriate by the Historic Zoning Commission for issuance of a COA. Staff's recommendation has to be that of the design guidelines, which would be that all fencing forward of the house would need to be 3 feet in height or less. I hope that helps.
I think it does. So the answer is that your recommendation is that it'd be 3 feet, not 6 feet.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
That's what I'm hearing. Okay, applicants.
So our hope is that the rendering that we've now provided, which is what we did not have at the last meeting, would help give you some context about what the fence would look like from a street view, and the height in relation to the street, to the house and the sidewalk and all of that. And again, we feel like that this fence is being put up for security reasons, not as a decorative addition to the campus, in that for it to serve as a security element to the campus, it needs to be 6 feet. We are working with a campus security consultant. I was hoping to have that information prior to this meeting, but we don't have that. That would give us some more professional opinion about what the height should be. So again, we're not doing this as a decoration. We're doing it more as security. And a 3-foot fence, especially around the playground, would not be appropriate either. Just like we don't think it would be appropriate in front of the school. So our hope was that this particular rendering, and there's also, Amanda, if you could scroll down, there's more from a street level view. Up rather, that right there. That's a street level view to show that it's pretty transparent, and you're not blocking a view of the historic house, and it sort of just goes away. It's not like a solid masonry wall across there. So that's really all we had to add to that, and we'd appreciate your consideration for a 6-foot fence.
Okay, is there any other comment for the other people representing the applicant?
No.
Okay, are there any citizens wish to comment on this portion of the application? All right, then commissioners need a motion.
This is Lisa. I'll make a motion that we approve the proposed fencing and gates, and that the material for the gates be submitted to staff to make sure that the material is emulative of cast iron. And I'd like to explain why the motion against staff recommendation.
Thank you.
our guidelines did not really take into consideration a school situation such as this one, requiring security features that other historic properties do not require. I think it's in the best interest of the school, certainly, to have the 6-foot fence. And because our guidelines are geared toward residential fencing and not this type of fencing, that is the basis for my motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a second to Lisa, a motion to approve the fencing and gates?
This is Ken. I'll second.
Thank you, Ken. Other comments?
Mr. Chair, I am still not comfortable with approving a 6-foot fence with 7-foot columns. So for that reason, I will not be supporting the motion. I understand the school's concerns, but I'm just not ready to approve that level, that height of fence.
Okay. Any other comments?
I have a quick question. I saw in the packet that there was a picture of folks standing next to the O'Moore College fence. Could you pull that up? And I didn't see on there, what is the height, not the gate, but what's the height of the picture on the lower left? What's the height of that fence?
I'll tell you exactly what it is. It is 3'3" to the top of the fence that sits on a 16-inch masonry wall. And then if you go to the middle picture where the sign is located, you're looking at, on that 16-inch tall masonry wall, you're looking at 54 inches or 4.5 feet to the top of that logo, the O&M. So in effect, you're looking at approximately what the entire length across the front of the BGA campus would be.
Okay.
If that answers your question.
That does answer my question. Does the applicant have anything to add on to that answer before I?
And as far as those columns go, where the gentleman is standing, those are right at 7 feet or a little taller columns there. They're pretty thick, but and I think the ones at BGA will be a little thinner. But anyway, they're about 7 feet tall.
And Mr. Chair, if I may clarify, Mr. Roberts, the chair is speaking to 7 feet tall for these, not 7 feet tall for these. I think that's
right. That's right.
Clear, but I just want to make sure for the record.
Oh, yes. Okay. That's right. He's standing in 3 different pictures, so you're right.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if the snow gave him that much of a lift.
No. The taller column, it's 7 feet.
Understand. I tend to agree with Kelly at this point. I think it's a little bit premature to approve a 6-foot fence. I am willing to go above.
It's about 7 feet right there.
Okay. Anybody else?
Mr. Chair, this is Susan.
Yeah.
I did go by and take a look at the fence, and I think that there is a height that we could look at other than the 3 foot. What is at O'Moore, I think works. And I think maybe the 6 foot might be too high, but the 3 feet is probably not going to work for them. So I think that I would like to have us look at a different height, because this is a pretty substantial amount of fencing. Thank you.
Any other comments?
A question for the applicant. One of the renderings, kind of towards the last page of our exhibits that we received, has a BGA insignia within the circle of the middle of the gate. Yeah, that one. Mm-hmm. So that BGA insignia is visible on that exhibit, but it's not visible on the other renderings. So is that part of the plan or not?
It's our
It'd be part of
intention
the plan to have those.
BGA in the gate. I think the timing that we had to pull all this together, that kind of detailing just did not get in there. But our intention is to have the BGA in that gate as well as the ceremonial gate, basically at the walk coming in.
Okay, thank you.
Other comments?
I was told I cut out. I just wanted to finish my thought that I would probably be accepting of a 5-foot fence. I know we're kind of squibbling over a foot, but I think it would make a big difference.
Well, my comments on this, I think the applicant has done a tremendous job of improving the visibility of this campus, has done a tremendous job of the parking and traffic flow, not only inside, into and out and throughout the campus, but also the traffic flow on Franklin Road, which backs up tremendously in the morning and in the afternoon, as it is right now with families trying to get in to drop off children or pick up children. I think the improvements and the everything that we have seen thus far, it just makes a tremendous difference. I think also, as Amanda said earlier, I think this is not a residential type property, and the security, as Jim Cross has said from the get-go when we first started looking at this, is paramount for these the kids on this campus. That's a little different than O'Moore. But so you're looking at a school this is kindergarten through the 4th grade. And I think anything, that's one thing. I think anything lower, 3 foot or 4 foot, is going to be a problem. It's also a problem as Franklin Road becomes more pedestrian because of streetscape. You've got people that they're trying to keep out of just wandering through that campus. And I think the 6-foot fence would do that. So I'm very much in favor of the motion that Lisa has made to do this thing as presented. So are there any other comments on the fencing? Assume you're ready to vote then. Kelly Baker,
No.
Susan Besser,
No.
Brian Lester,
No.
Nick Mann,
No.
Lisa Marquardt,
Yes.
Ken Scalf,
Yes.
Kathy Worthington,
No.
Jim Roberts. Aye. All right, the motion is defeated then. Do we have another motion?
Mr. Chair, this is Jim Cross. Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Could we ask for this now to be deferred until next meeting?
Sure.
I would like to, I'm going to go ahead.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
I'd like to at least have the ability to have our security consultant come back with a recommendation. We take this pretty seriously, and we don't want to just arbitrarily make a decision to go with something less than 6 feet when we have a consultant, campus security consultant, tell us that 6 feet is the appropriate height.
Okay.
And if it's okay, I think I'd like to ask for this to be deferred.
You can, or Jim, it can be, it's been denied, so that also can be, you can be put on the design review for us to look at it again.
I said
it can be resubmitted.
Okay.
The application can be resubmitted. It's denied at this passing, but as many applications are, they're denied and then they come back and they come back. So it's, I think we can get.
Okay, I understand.
Get something that's amenable to all.
Have we already passed the deadline for the next meeting to submit then?
Not to the next voting meeting, which would be in April, but you can come to the design review next Monday if you would like.
Okay, thank you.
We have information.
Mr. Chair, just in case, I don't think that the application has been denied. We did a motion to approve, which was not passed. So in effect, nothing has happened. You can defer the application if you want to.
Okay. All right. Then is there a motion to defer this application?
So moved. This is Lisa.
All right, thank you, Lisa. Is there a second?
Ken.
Thank you, Ken. Any discussion on that?
Do
Defer
I
to
need
the
to be
next
deferred
voting
to a
meeting.
date certain? Okay, thank you.
Defer to the next voting meeting. All right, any other discussion on that? All right, ready to vote. Kelly Baker,
Aye.
Susan Besser,
Aye.
Brian Laster,
Aye.
Nick Mann,
Aye.
Lisa Marquardt,
Aye.
Ken Scalf,
Aye.
Kathy Worthington,
Aye.
Jim Roberts, aye.
And I'll just add for the record that the next voting meeting will take place on April 12th. And I will work with the applicant to ensure that they understand the deadline, which is in a couple of weeks. So they have time to resubmit. I'd also like to extend an invitation if they so desire to attend next Monday's Design Review Committee meeting. I would need to have confirmation of that no later than 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, however, in order to add that to the agenda. So if you'd like me to do that, you feel free to state so now, or you could certainly think about it and email me before tomorrow morning.
We would love to be at the next design review committee meeting.
Thank you so much.
All right, let's move on. Our next item.
Here's the chat. See what the chat thinks.
Consideration of alterations, front facade rehabilitation at 115 Second Avenue South. Belinda Stewart, applicant.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The applicant is requesting a certificate of appropriateness for a series of repairs to the front facade of this building. The building, the Hiram Lodge, was constructed in 1823 and is recognized as a National Historic Landmark, which is a status above National Register of Historic Places. It's a very, very important building to not just our community, but our nation. It's very exciting to see this coming forward. The alterations are proposed to ensure the structural integrity of the building, as the front wall, which is the west wall, is leaning significantly between the top of the third floor windows and the spire on the parapet wall. The proposal requests approval for the disassembly and reconstruction of the upper area of this wall. 4 of the window jack arches have also become unstable and must be repaired. General repointing and masonry restoration is also proposed. So I'll go ahead and share screen. And I'm going to skip forward to this page. So that's a little bit more clear. To visually clarify what I just stated, the area proposed for reconstruction aligns roughly with the headers of the third floor windows. May come down a little lower on the sides here. You can see in the shaded area. There's also areas where the jack arches are, which are these rounded arches here, that may need to be rebuilt and be more stable. The proposal also includes 3 alternate items as part of the scope. When I say alternate, they may not move forward at this time, but the applicant is still working through that with her client to determine if that would move forward. That would include the repointing of the entire front facade, the restoration of the historic windows on this wall as seen on the screen here, and the installation of a new awning at the building entrance, which is located right here. The Historic Zoning Commission approved a COA for the series of work that I just described at its November 13th, 2017 meeting, but that COA has since expired. The applicant had appeared before the DRC at last month's February meeting in order to discuss the proposal to move forward at this time. As for the analysis, the proposal is intended to serve as phase 1 of the overall restoration of this building. Phase 1 is specific to this west wall. It addresses the structural and framing issues I described, as well as the needed facade repairs. As outlined by the structural engineer that reviewed this project with the applicant, the facade repairs address various masonry issues, including wear, cracking, delamination, sagging, some staining and discoloration, the replacement of non-original incompatible bricks. In order to address these issues, the applicant's proposing to remove and reconstruct the entire thickness of the parapet portion of the wall, which I believe is 3 wides. And that would be limited to the limestone heading of the upper story windows here. There's the heading kind of jogging along the windows here. The wall will be reconstructed to tie back to the main form of the building with flashing addressed accordingly. And the applicant's also proposing to remove and reconstruct the brick white of these jack arches I just mentioned in order to ensure their stability. The finials and capstones are proposed to be removed, restored, and then reinstalled at these locations here. Finials, capstones. All mortar joints are proposed to be repointed to match the existing setting mortar in composition, color, and strength. The proposed work is appropriate to ensure the preservation and maintenance of this original exterior masonry wall and all its detailing. And the guidelines would recommend that one repair, if not, or if needed, to replace any damaged masonry with new masonry that matches the historic as closely as possible in both color and texture, but also profile. Further, when repointing, one should use mortar that matches the color and composition and appearance and rake the new mortar joints to match the original profile. The removal of the storm windows and the restoration of these original windows is entirely appropriate and encouraged by staff. The replacement of the current awning with a new, more historically appropriate awning, as shown in A8.3 of the proposal, is also appropriate. So with that, I happily recommend approval with conditions of this proposed front facade alteration, or rehabilitation rather, with the notes that all historic windows must be preserved and maintained, and that if any new windows are determined to be required, they have to be wooden material and have a historic profile and dimension consistent with that of the original windows. And those specifications would need to be submitted to staff for review and approval prior to installation. The applicant must also reuse existing stone and brick where possible for reconstruction and repairs per the guidelines, and any new brick must match the color, texture, and profile of the original. The cleaning should be done as gently as possible and must not include sandblasting or other abrasive cleaning methods. The repointing must match the original in composition and appearance. And the application must meet all the requirements of the city team at the Building and Neighborhood Services Department prior to issuance of a building permit. Any changes to this plan set would need to be returned to myself or the Historic Zoning Commission prior to work moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Would the applicant wish to comment on the application, especially if there are any changes from when it was previously submitted?
Excuse me, this is Belinda Stewart with Belinda Stewart Architects. And no, there have been no changes since it was previously submitted. We are proceeding as we presented it to you before. And just to reiterate what Amanda said, this is a very special building and a very important building historically, and we're treating it accordingly. Our goal is to restore everything there that is able to be kept. We're having the bricks taken down, actually charted so that they can be put back where they were. And, we want to be have as light of a touch as we can to this building, but we also want to stabilize and get this front wall back into good shape.
Thank you. Are there any citizens who wish to comment on the application?
No callers on the line.
Thank you. Okay, Commission, need a motion.
Mr. Chair, this is Brian. I heartily move to approve with conditions a COA for the proposed front facade rehabilitation.
And this is Lisa. I heartily second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, I guess you're ready to vote. Kelly Baker.
Aye.
Susan Besser.
Aye.
Brian Laster.
Aye.
Nick Mann.
Aye.
Lisa Marquardt.
Aye.
Ken Scalf.
Aye.
Kathy Worthington.
Aye.
And Jim Roberts. Aye. Belinda, that might be a record.
That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you for the investment.
I just want to extend my thanks as well. I am wholeheartedly pleased that work is commencing on this building. It's such a special building, as Belinda stated, and it's not just special to our neck of the woods, it's special to the whole country. And we appreciate the care and thoughtfulness that was put into this plan. Now I look forward to working with you moving forward.
Great. Same here. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Clay. All right, item 4, consideration of new construction at 137 Splendor Ridge. Chad Gore, applicant. Amanda?
Thank you. The applicant's requesting a certificate of appropriateness for the construction of a 2-story principal structure with a garage at 137 Splendor Ridge Drive, which is lot 7 in Splendor Ridge. And I will share screen. Just a moment. Okay, just for the sake of the order, this is the location of Splendor Ridge, located at Franklin Road, Lancaster Drive, and then Splendor Ridge Drive extending from that. I'm sorry, Parsons Place extending from that, and then Splendor Ridge Drive here. It is located in the Franklin Road Historic District behind the Riverview Historic Home located fronting Franklin Road. The applicant appeared before the DRC to discuss this evening's proposal at its February 15th meeting. Now moving forward, this is specifically the location of Lot 7. These 3 shaded here have been previously approved by the commission at earlier dates. This is Parsons Place intersecting with the new Splendor Ridge Drive. Lot 7 is to the right as you approach the subdivision. I am going to the rendering here. Please let me know if you need me to zoom in any to make it larger. The guidelines recommend that new construction be compatible with massing, height, scale, proportions, size, and architectural features of adjacent buildings, and that new construction complement rather than detract from the character of the historic district. Being Franklin Road Historic District, there are several historic properties on the National Register of Historic Places, and the district represents an array of architectural styles. Key characteristics include residential and agricultural buildings from the 19th and 20th centuries. The applicant's proposing the construction of a 2-story residence with Italianate detailing. Lot 7 is the one we're talking about this evening. And I'm going to go ahead and move to a more zoomed in version of Lot 7 here. It has a hipped main roof that you see here with a front gable projection here, box bay here, side cross gables here, and then on the other side, a pedimented covered entrance here, and then an attached garage, which you can see on the right side of the building here. Also unique to this building is a single-story form. I'll go back to this slide. Single-story form here, designed to read as a porch area that has been enclosed. A small terrace is situated in front of that single-story entrance, and you don't see that as well on the rendering. I'm going to skip ahead to the elevations so you can get a better sense of that. So you can see the small terrace located here to the left side of the porch, pedimented porch entrance. The guidelines recommend that one reinforce and maintain existing setbacks, and the property is located on a newly platted subdivision, so the setbacks have been defined as 15 feet from the front yard, 5 for the side yards, and 15 for the rear. The applicants provided that conceptual streetscape in order to give a better sense of how the property will be informed by the grade changes. The grade change from the sidewalk here to the building's finished floor elevation here is approximately 6 feet. So the applicant has provided a rendering to show this proposed use of tiered concrete risers. So you see a set here, a landing, and then a set going up to the porch to kind of help break up that grade change. It's more staggered instead of more abrupt. Ground coverings also proposed to be used in order to achieve a softer grade transition. As discussed previously, there had been a proposal for retaining walls, but due to some issues with some utility easements, they would not be able to be set at the sidewalks. So the applicant's proposing to use this landscaping method and tiered concrete riser method in order to help with softening that grade transition. The proposed scale is 2 stories as viewed from the street, which is appropriate for the Franklin Road Historic District. It's also consistent with the development's preliminary COA. The use of the porch in the single story element here and this box bay kind of softens the scale as you approach the building as well. It softens that perceived building mass and its height. At the DRC's recommendation, the applicant has utilized a row lock course at the base of the box bay. And I'll go ahead and skip to the elevation set so that's more clear. So prior to the submittal at the DRC discussion, there was no row lock course, and the application has been adjusted to include one to help soften that foundation appearance as recommended by the DRC. The garage is in keeping with the intent of the guidelines as well, as it is located in such a way that though it is attached, it appears to be detached from views forward of the street. And it is at a traditional location to the rear and the side of the building. The height at 36 feet 9 inches is consistent with the development's approved preliminary COA. And the materials of the proposed construction are listed as brick, which you see throughout the main form of the building here. A cementitious lap siding of a 5-inch reveal located on the gabled portion of the building at the rear. Cementitious paneling, which you see primarily at the box bay and also at that enclosed single-story element on the front of the building. Wood railings, asphalt shingle roofing with a metal roofing material at the box bay and the single-story element at the front. Window specifications have not been provided, but I anticipate that they'll be the same material specifications that have been approved for the other lots of the property. The proportion and rhythm of the window openings are consistent with the guidelines as well. The building coverage, however, is at 39.3%, which is not consistent with the recommendations of the guidelines. The guidelines recommend that a maximum building coverage not exceed 35 feet in specified residential zoning districts, including R1, where the subject property is located. So for that reason, specifically the building coverage, the application is recommended to be denied. And if issued as COA, the windows must have a historic profile and dimension, and those specifications submitted to staff for review and approval. Further, the historic masonry would need to be submitted to ensure that the color of the mortar joints, the width of the mortar joints, the size and scale of the bricks, the color, the texture, et cetera, are in keeping with the intent of the guidelines. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rose. Would the applicant wish to comment? Would the applicant wish to comment?
Sorry, I'm trying to unmute. Hang on.
There you go. We got you.
Well, I guess I got to hold the space bar down. Okay. Yeah, thank you, Amanda, as always, for a great summarization. I don't have a whole lot to add. Just we got mostly positive feedback at the DRC. The only real things we've changed since then were to move the roll lock down on that bay on the front, and then we added the contextual images. Didn't have anything that we discussed at DRC that we had opposition to. I do want to point out, I know Amanda has to recommend denial because of the building coverage, but just it's worth reminding the commissioners that the 3 previous submittals were also above the 35%. They were at, I think, 39 exact. They're all between 39 and 39.9. We've made a pledge to stay below 40%, and we'll, of course, continue to do that. But just wanted to remind you guys that that kind of point of discussion has come up before, and you as a body did approve that. I suppose it's best to just open it up to questions from you.
Are there any citizens who wish to comment on this application?
No callers on the line.
Thank you. Okay, commissioners, need a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move the Historic Zoning Commission approve the proposed new construction with staff's comments 2 through 4.
I would second that, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Nick. All right, question. That's approved with staff's comments 2 through 4 on the recommendations.
So I have a question it's on page A4 and A5. I'm looking at the enclosed porch roof line, and now I'm not an architect, but I did take enough geometry. I don't think they're the same. It's where it ties into the building.
Chad, you want to respond to that?
All right, still having trouble with the mute button. If I understand your question, the slope on the front and on the side of that one-story element are the same. But maybe I'm misunderstanding what you're asking. 2.5 and 12 and on the front and on the side.
So if I'm now, again, not an architect, but it looks like it's tying into the back, it's sloping backward. And then the other drawing looks like it's sloping towards the right.
So it's a hipped roof. Maybe, did I include a roof plan? Lo and behold. Yeah, A3. So it's a hipped roof. Looking at it from the front, it would slope off to the left, and looking at it from the left side, it slopes to the front.
Thank you. It was boggling my mind.
No problem.
Okay, other questions or comments? All right, I guess we're ready to vote. So please respond then when I call your name. Kelly Baker.
Aye.
Susan Besser.
No.
Brian Lester.
Aye.
Nick Mann.
Aye.
Lisa Marquardt.
Aye.
Ken Scalf.
Aye.
Kathy Worthington.
No.
Jim Roberts. Aye. Okay, Chad, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to ask the chair to clarify the votes for just a moment, as I wasn't able to catch them all.
Okay, Susan Besser and Kathy Worthington voted no. Mary Pierce is absent, and the rest voted yes.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
I should call this out. Consideration, next item is consideration of demolition accessory at 211 2nd Avenue South. Amanda McCreary, applicant. Amanda? Rose.
Thank you. The applicant is requesting a COA for the demolition of an accessory structure located at 209 2nd Avenue South. I will now share screen, show you that. So you can see the subject property located here. Very beautiful home at 2nd Avenue South. The accessory structure is located to the rear and to the left side of the property at the end of the driveway located here. I'm going to move forward. Here is a photograph of the front elevation of the accessory structure. The guidelines recommend against the demolition of historic buildings or structures and state that demolition should only be approved if the Historic Zoning Commission deems one or more of the demolition criteria as met. The demolition criteria include architectural and historical integrity. Specifically, if a building has lost its architectural and historical integrity and its removal will not adversely impact the district's character. The second criteria by which demolition may be considered is that of unreasonable economic hardship. Third, public safety and welfare requires the removal of the building. And the fourth criterion by which demolition may be considered is that of structural integrity or structural instability rather, or deterioration. Specifically, if the structural instability or deterioration of a property is demonstrated through a report by a structural engineer or architect, and that the report must clearly detail the property's physical condition, reasons why rehabilitation is not feasible, and cost estimates for rehabilitation versus demolition. The guidelines also note that a separate report which details further action on site should be included. This is the criterion by which the applicant is requesting consideration of demolition. As a contributing historic building, meaning it's a contributing accessory structure to the National Register Historic District that does not appear to have been altered substantively since its construction, the building does maintain its historic integrity. So the National Register of Historic Places, it includes documentation for the Downtown Franklin Historic District, which is listed on that honorific list. The property in question is listed as contributing as well as the accessory structure. It was built circa 1960, but the building is listed as contributing because the age of significance defined by the Downtown Franklin Historic District or for the Downtown Franklin Historic District exceeds that date. So this falls into that period of significance. It has gained enough historic architectural or historical integrity over time to be considered a contributing structure. So in speaking to structural instability or deterioration, the applicant states the building is not structurally stable due to deterioration and lack of structural integrity. Photographs have been included for your consideration. Here are some existing conditions you see here. There's some settlement noted, cracking at locations of where vegetation has grown onto the building, a tree growing at the location of this wooden lean-to type structure that was added later to the building. Estimates for rehabilitation versus demolition and reconstruction of a comparable structure have not been included for consideration, nor has information about the proposed future action on site. I will state that the applicant contacted me today and did provide more information to me about future action on site. So feel free to ask those questions if you would like to do so. Based on the application submitted for the staff to consider today in light of the guidelines, it is recommended that the commission defer review of the proposed demolition, as staff recommends that this be deferred until rehabilitation estimates and a plan for future action on site be provided to substantiate the request for demolition as recommended by the guidelines, and that if issued a COA, the accessory structure be satisfactorily documented with photographs both inside and out for commission records prior to demolition moving forward. And then if issued a COA, that they meet all the requirements of the city before moving forward, including the issuance of a building permit for demolition. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm muted. Dave, would the applicant please comment on the application?
Hey guys. So we do have a accessory garage here built circa 1960. I think one of the big things that we have is that the left portion of the CMU wall is over the property line. So we have that to contend with. And then also we do have some structural instability. There is no foundation to the CMU wall that we could find. There is no slab to the garage that we can find. And the cracking that is happening within the CMU walls, on the left side, it's heaving a little bit. And on the right side, it's actually cracked through the CMU. So it's not cracked along the masonry joint lines. It's actually cracked through the CMU. The other thing is just to take in consideration is the front. Those doors were built by the current homeowner in 1998. He remembers the year because he was working with his son as a senior in high school doing that. The doors are not historic. He made those with some leftover building material that he had going around. So we did not include a cost for rehabilitation. We are working with Lee Restoration on this project for the homeowner, and Michael and I had a discussion about it. And part of the challenge is to what extent do you rehabilitate something that's on someone else's property? And being that it's a CMU structure and not a wood structure, we can't exactly move it like maybe we could if it was a wood structure and put it on skids. So it would be more of a dismantle to get it onto his property than it would be to rehabilitate it in place. Also his age, it is from the 60s. And yeah, that's where the other part with the, what are we putting in place? That's a little bit of a catch-22 from a homeowner standpoint. There is some design expense involved with designing a new garage. And so there is some concern of not moving forward too much in the design process until we know that we can demolish what is there. So that's the owner standpoint, is kind of the long discussion of what comes first. But the reason they did contact us and Lee Restoration is they do like the garage that we did on 3rd Avenue, the single car garage with the shed, the little shop on the side, the Susie Smith's house on 3rd Avenue. So that is what we're looking to put back in its place. This particular homeowner has a very generous yard for downtown Franklin. It's half an acre. So we've got plenty of space to actually get the new garage within zoning requirements and off of setbacks, and allow for some turnaround space so they're not backing out into the street.
Okay, thank you. Are there any citizens who wish to comment?
No callers?
Thank you. Okay, commission, need a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to defer a review of a certificate of appropriateness for the proposed accessory structure to the April 12th Historic Zoning Commission meeting based on staff analysis and recommendation dated March 8, 2021.
Thank you. Is there a second to that?
Second, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Brian. Any discussion? Okay, ready to vote?
So I have a discussion. So are we deferring because we don't have a plan in place for the future, or over the cost? Because to us, the biggest thing is, we're on someone else's property for a portion of the structural wall, but also, so what are the main concerns? Is it the design of what's going in place, or is it the cost for rehabilitation? Are we able to consider it with the information that we have?
I will respond with yes, both. I would, yes.
Yes, what?
Yes, I don't feel comfortable with approving demolition at this time. And also, I do have concerns about what's going to come into this place and into its place. And I know that as a commission in the past, we've been hesitant to approve demolition, which is just the front end of a project often. So would like further discussion, hopefully at design review next week.
Any other comments?
I have a question for the applicant. Have the homeowner approached the adjacent homeowner for an easement of any type, or any sort of, ability to acquire that small piece of land?
That particular lot is currently under construction. It's a stone house. It went through design not too long ago, because I was in that meeting for a different project. And there was some consideration even on their end because of it all. I think they may have, but I know that they've got a smaller lot, and I can't answer the extent of those discussions. I know they're dealing with some shared driveway issues at the moment.
Any other comments?
I'd like to note that it is certainly over the property line, to Ms. McCrae's point. I do not want the commission to think that it can't be rehabilitated because it is over the property line. It's certainly more complicated in the grand scheme of things, but it's not for the city to encourage the building be demolished simply because it's over the property line. It is a contributing accessory structure and should be reviewed in light of the applicable standards for demolition, regardless of the location in relation to the adjacent property.
Amanda McCary, would it be safe to say that the property owner is really trying to open up that area between the two properties with another structure, assuming this one can be removed, to give them some more space?
Yes. So they're not looking to build a large garage, but they are looking to get it that 5 feet off the side setback, just because that property is a little bit smaller to the left, and they've got the space to do so, to give it a little bit more breathing room in the back and to the right off the property line. And I think really the biggest thing is from a cost standpoint as well, to on this side of knowing what to put back, paying for some design work to put back, not knowing that you can't demolish, I think is a big challenge and a big hurdle for some homeowners.
Can we get some more specifics as to the exact condition of it? I can see what the pictures say.
Earphones are bugging me. Can we get some more specifics as to the exact condition?
It's on the structure itself.
Yes, I believe that's what the chair means. Ms.
Yes,
Becker.
so there are some pictures. I've got mine open as well. So if you just want to, Amanda, show page 3. So this is just some overall of each elevation. The front, like I said, those garage doors are from 1998. The back portion of the lean-to has definitely been some cobbled together of just leftover materials. You can see in the gable, even on the rear of the main structure, it is metal roofing that has been used as the siding. There are holes all throughout the back wall. When you're standing in the garage, you can see daylight for sure. On the lean-to, there is a tree growing through the right side of that lean-to as well. So if you scroll down, Amanda, to the next page. So this is just showing the front. It has some deterioration in the door panels because the back of the doors that are shown in the middle are actually plywood. It's not any kind of structural exterior membrane of of building materials. So it is plywood with some applied pieces to it. The door on the left was made with some leftover tongue and groove boards they had. There's gaps and different sort of pieces. You can scroll to the next slide. So this shows the CMU blocks. The top pictures are on the right side of the garage, and it is cracking in 2 locations where the blocks themselves have cracked, not just along the mortar line. And then the picture on the left is the bottom left is the left side. And it's hard to see in that picture, but it's hinging at the mortar joint. And as far as we can tell, the CMU is placed on the ground. There's no actual foundation to support it. So it's having quite a bit of settlement. There is no concrete on the inside of the garage. It is a dirt floor. You can go to the next slide. This is some additional pictures of the back portion of the property with the detailing. I mean, it's pretty significant on the lean-to. You can tell on that. And then the next slide. So from the inside perspective, the ceiling joists have been sistered up already. And you can see in that top right picture, again, it's hinging. So we've got some hinge pieces happening. The eaves are open. There's no enclosed soffit. So there's definitely some deterioration that's happened there as well. All of the fascia boards have significant deterioration. For instance, on the top right picture and on the bottom middle picture. So again, when working with Michael Lee and doing an assessment, it pretty much all of those components would have to be taken apart. And would not be original to begin with due to the amount of rot that they have if they were to be replaced. On the next slide. Oh, never mind. That's it. The last is the application. So that goes through and shows the different stages that are within the property.
Okay. All right, we've got a motion to defer. Is there any other conversation from the commission and defer to the next voting meeting, which means Amanda could come join us next Monday if she would like to at Design Review to talk about this some more. But is there any other comment from commissioners on this before we vote on a motion to defer?
I think that the applicant is seeking a little bit more guidance on what the commission would like to see to help inform the future consideration. And Amanda, please clarify if that's not the case. But I think that if you wouldn't mind speaking a little bit more to that, then she could be better prepared for DRC and then the April meeting.
Okay. Are there commissioners, I don't see any, I really cannot see any reason for this building, even though it is quote historic. I don't see any architectural integrity to it, but I don't see any reason that it should not be removed. Now, if other commissioners can help me out on that, and I know we don't like to approve demolition of buildings, but based on what I see here, and interestingly enough, this roof structure that's bowing or bow and sistering of structural rafters, I just had this last summer in our home, one collapsed because it dry rotted in our garage or storage room now, which was a nice sound to hear at 10 o'clock at night. But so I can understand, and this looks very similar to what we had, one of these cross beams. So that's I see enough from these pictures where I don't need to defer, but that's me.
Mr. Chair, I agree, which is why I didn't have a whole lot of guidance. I think it would be a little bit of a exercise to ask the applicant to provide cost of restoration when it's pretty clear that I don't think restoration is feasible. So I agree that I think that this would be the evidence presented is enough for demolition for me.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I must also, I'm sympathetic with the applicant, and that concrete block building doesn't seem historically significant. And I agree with your comments as well. But I think some more guidance at to defer, especially to the design review, might be helpful.
Well, you defer to the next voting meeting, but she can come to design review. But I think what she's looking for is what other than we see in these photographs and has been articulated, does she need to provide to the commission? That's Amanda McCreary's question.
And I think part of it too is, we were hoping to get a vote tonight to see of the demolition so we can move forward with the design on the new garage. So I understand that there's a motion to defer, but I do think that was the intent of the homeowner, and that's what we had hoped as well, to get a vote so we know the steps to move forward. But I understand if we don't do that and we defer, does that mean we need to come with a design for the new garage, or can we show you, I don't know, Amanda, if you can even pull up the email with the photograph from the 3rd Avenue garage, which is kind of our basis of design of what's going to go in its place.
Well, that could be a discussion at design review.
Okay.
But I think the pictures that I see here are enough for me. But in addition, the fact that it overlaps that property to the left,
right,
that is a significant thing, that you cannot just pick this thing up and move it over to get it all
right
on that property. I get it. And I think there's so much construction, which we have approved, going on that property adjoining it, that it does need to get some space there between those two properties. I've walked by there a couple of times in the last few days, so I can see that issue. So,
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, if it's deferred, I think that if we could have at least some idea of the lot coverage it's going to result from whatever is going to go back, that at least would inform some.
That's a good idea.
And we have a half-acre acre lot, so that lot coverage definitely will not be a problem. It's one of the larger lots in downtown Franklin. But we can get that data, but it definitely will not be a problem.
The picture that was in the email you said you'd sent to Amanda, I think would be helpful, along with some kind of rough idea on a footprint on the property, assuming the accessory building is removed. I hope commissioners
And
for that.
yeah, and my comment is that the guidelines are abundantly clear when it comes to demolition of historic buildings, and this kind of application is not something that we can enter into lightly. And certainly, I'm not saying that that's what the applicant has done, but on other occasions regarding demolition, it's been a pretty high standard of proof regarding the structural defects, both inside and outside. And we've seen structural engineer opinions on buildings that were being requested for demolition.
Good point, and you're right. And Amanda McCrary is well aware of that too. So are there any other comments before we vote on a motion to defer? All right, Amanda McCrary, do you have enough guidance from us now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, then please respond, commissioners, when I call your name. Kelly Baker,
Aye.
Susan Besser,
No.
Brian Laster,
Aye.
Nick Mann,
Aye.
Lisa Marquardt,
Aye.
Mary Pierce, oh, she's not here. Ken Scalf,
Aye.
Kathy Worthington,
No.
Jim Roberts, no. Okay, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 3. Amanda, you got that? All right. See you Monday then, Amanda.
Thank you. See you guys.
Okay, I think that is it. Then, unless somebody says something else, I need a motion to adjourn.
I'll just note that we have the DRC meeting on Monday at 4:00. That will be a virtual meeting, and I will send you the finalized agenda and digital packet no later than Wednesday afternoon.
You might want to talk about the meeting the following Monday too, Amanda.
Thank you for bringing that up. Yes, thank you. The Historic Zoning Commission's Design Review Committee is having a special meeting on what I believe is the 22nd of March.
27th.
So that is 2 weeks from today, to discuss specifically with our consultant the plan moving forward for the new City Hall building here at the current City Hall location, 109 3rd Avenue South. Kelly Dannenfelser, would you like to add anything more to the scope of the discussion?
Sure. This will be one of the early meetings in the public engagement process that we have with various commissions and with the general public. But we wanted to get out in front of the DRC and Historic Zoning Commission first, because you're such an important body to participate in what the future of City Hall will look like. And so we're going to bring a presentation that Matt Taylor has put together on the historical context of the site and the square. And I have to say, it's really fascinating. I think you all will really enjoy it. And we're just looking forward to your creativity and your ideas and your initial feedback as we go through this process.
Yes, this is not a plan with elevations by any means. It's really to gather your input, and so we can ensure that that input is reflected well in the plans to come.
Good. Thank you. Then a motion to adjourn, please.
So moved. It's Ken.
Thank you, Ken. Is there a second?
Second. Lisa.
Lisa, I see you, so I'm going to give it to you. Kelly Baker,
Aye.
Susan Besser,
Aye.
Brian Laster,
Aye.
Nick Mann,
Aye.
Lisa Marquardt,
Aye.
Ken Scalf,
Aye.
Kathy Worthington,
Aye.
and Jim Roberts. Aye. Thank you all very much. See you next Monday.
Good
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.